Halloween
forever.
Welcome, boils and ghouls, to a motherfucking showdown episode of Halloween is Forever. I'm Brian.
I'm Steve.
Oh, wait, who that handsome boy we got hanging out there? Who's that little cellar-dwelling boy in the background there? Is that our old pal Bigfoot Ben, a.k.a. Big Top Ben, a.k.a. Big Ween Ben?
From the basement, it's me. I am here. I am underground tonight, and with the Pittsburgh potty in the background.
You are lurking deep in a cellar somewhere in Western Pennsylvania. We're happy to have you. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing great.
Let me just go take a quick hot sec to recap. These are the topics that are going to be up for grabs for our July Showdown episode. So our choices will be childhood trauma, that is to say movies that provided us with an ample supply of childhood trauma. Trains, just trains.
I like
trains. That one a lot. I like that one.
I like trains. I think that's fun.
Or supernatural slashers. So quite a broad range there.
Hello, it is me, Steve from the future past. The winner was movies causing childhood trauma. Thousands of years ago, the great screen showed us flashing images which terrified us. In July, we determined which movie scared us the most as kids and ruined us as adults.
But this ain't July. This is June.
No,
we got a whole month of yumminess in front of us here, where we are going to be talking about least intimidating villains.
The worst of the worst.
Exactly.
The weakest of the weakest.
All right. Last, but certainly not least, here we are. I am going to talk to you about, from 1983, Psycho 2, right? Now, I want to put this out there because we're not talking about the Psycho franchise. We're not talking about the first Psycho movie. It's a very specific reason why I picked Psycho 2. So a little bit about this movie, right? It stars returning the most memorable, one of the most memorable performances in horror history, of course, in the original Alfred Hitchcock 1960 Psycho. We have him reprising his famous role of Norman Bates, the great Anthony Perkins. We also have, in the kind of primary supporting role here of Mary, we have Meg Tilly, who is the sister. I would say mom, which is not accurate. The sister of Jennifer Tilly, which we know from Bride of Chucky and many things in the Chucky cinematic universe. In her first, her big break, her first kind of feature length debut, they originally looked at a lot of folks, including Jamie Lee Curtis and a bunch of, kind of higher profile performers, but they decided that it might be distracting to put some that this is originally what the director said. So they picked a little bit less known performer. Oh, I should call out Richard Franklin is the director. You know him from, Jamie Lee Curtis. He directed in Road Games. He did,
X2.
What else from a genre perspective? Yeah, X2. I'm trying to think of what else is probably most relevant to
That's about
genre fans.
Yeah, it's Road Games and FX2, and
yeah,
I think maybe no. I was gonna say he directed a couple episodes of the Beastmaster TV series, and that's just not gonna cut it.
Yeah, not a ton. The script, however, was written by the great Tom Holland, who is, most
Spider-Man.
genre fans would, yeah, of course, Spider-Man. Directed Child's Play, directed Fright Night. Wrote those. Wrote. I'm pretty sure he wrote Child's Play.
Wrote for Child's Play, Fright Night,
as well. But he also wrote Class of 1984, but I don't believe he directed it. No, he did not direct it. Yeah, we just talked a lot about Tom Holland recently when we talked about the original Child's Play. But he did a very different. So Richard Bloch wrote the novel Psycho that the first movie was based on, and Hitchcock, did a pretty faithful adaptation of that. But the sequel that Richard Bloch wrote was kind of like a takedown of like Hollywood slashers. So Universal was like, hey, we don't really want that. So they went a completely different direction with Tom Holland when he wrote this script. We'll touch on a couple of the other cast members here, I think, that are worth calling out. Vera Miles, who is reprising her role from the first film. Lila Crane,
aka Lila Loomis.
Eventually Lila Loomis, yeah, because she was dating or engaged to Sam Loomis in the first movie. Sam Loomis did not come back for this movie. They talked about bringing him back for it, but he was named the U.S. ambassador to Mexico, actually. So, which is such a bizarre thing. This random actor, Ronald Reagan appointed him, so it makes sense that he would appoint a fellow actor. He was just doing dickhead shit all over the place. But she comes back playing, reprising her same role. We have Dr. Bill Raymond, played by the great Robert Loggia. I love a Robert Loggia. We have Dennis Franz playing Warren Toomey, who's a real awesome scumbag. Dennis Franz was in a ton of stuff, but most people know him as Lieutenant Andy Sipowicz in NYPD Blue. Let me see who else is the big ones worth calling out. Claudia Breyer as Miss Spool. She's been in a ton of stuff, but mostly stuff in the late 50s, through the 70s. So she was kind of towards the end of her career, in this role. So this movie, I would argue, is one of the first great genre sequels. 1983 was well before like the sequel boom, right? Halloween 2 had come out because it had made $1 bajillion, but to just throw a sequel out there for any movie was not normal, right? In 1983, let alone a movie that was made almost a quarter century before and was hailed as the greatest horror movie ever made, right? For most folks,
it was definitely a brave choice.
It was a very brave choice, and it was kind of a pipe dream because they never thought they would get Anthony Perkins to do it. Anthony Perkins was like slated for Hollywood royalty from like the late, I want to say late 50s, even mid 50s. He was going to be like the next it guy. They talked about how, Hollywood was trying to push him as the next Clark Gable, that type of thing. He ended up just doing a bunch of like really artsy fartsy movies because that's what he loved, right? He was a very like artistically focused guy. He didn't care as much about all the fame stuff. And then after Psycho, it was such a cultural phenomenon, which, 1960, I certainly wasn't alive, but like, just what it did in the theaters, how much money it made in the theaters on like a less than $1 million budget. It made, I didn't write it down, but I want to say it's just something insane. back, for some reason, like $55 million or something in the
cool.
box office is sticking in my head. But that is like, yeah, I don't know what that, with inflation translates to, but an absolute shitload of money on a small budget.
Oh,
Yeah, according to IMDb, it was on a budget of $800,000 and it made $32 million. So I don't know, maybe adjusted for today dollars, it's like 55.
Okay. Yeah, an absolute shitload of money for the time, and it was a cultural phenomenon, right? He definitely, this was a movie that like was Psycho, I mean the original one, really well received, but also kind of panned in a lot of ways by a lot of critics, because they said it was like, barbarous, you know what I mean, and borderline pornography, and obviously had the sexual undertones to it. It showed a toilet on screen that was very scandalous at the time, and of course, like, murder and matricide and all this stuff. Like it was a pretty dark movie, certainly for its time, very transgressive. And Anthony Perkins was kind of typecast after that. He was like the poster child for being typecast for a lot of years after that. And he never, although he was in this amazingly successful movie and this iconic movie that's lasted the test of time, a lot of folks, think of him as like a what if he wouldn't have done that role, would he have been this, enormous A-list leading man? But over the years, he had like become more comfortable with where he was at in his career, and like didn't take himself as seriously, and would kind of make fun of it a little bit. And I think that like painted him in a good light, right, amongst the general public. And, the ultimate testament to that was he decided, when they approached him about it, to everyone's like shock, he agreed to do Psycho 2 and reprise his role. But he said it was almost entirely due to the strength of the script from Tom Holland.
Just quickly jumping back, it would have been like if a $9 million movie today would have made $360 million. So
I was going to say, it had to be an enormous difference in terms of inflation.
Yeah.
So really, really successful. So the interesting thing about this is they're making a movie that a lot had changed from 1960 to mid 1980s. Obviously, Psycho was actually when shooting in color was starting to become really popular. They decided to go with black and white. So it was kind of on the tail end of big time black and white features. So they switched it up pretty dramatically. The script was written from Norman Bates's perspective, and it portrays him as like this unreliable narrator and a red herring even to himself, right? So it really keeps you are along for the ride with Norman, and you are not learning any more or any less than what he knows, right? He is unintimidating, but unintimidating by design. So going back to the 1960 version, he was this kind of skinny little nerdy guy, right, who ultimately was found to be horrifying and dangerous and intimidating and all these things in hindsight, just because of his just insanity, right? At this point, he is supposedly rehabilitated, but he's not only the same skinny, diminutive guy that he was in the first movie, but now he's like middle-aged, later than middle-aged, and he's late middle-aged, if you will. I forget how old he was when this was shot. I want to say he was like in his mid-50s or something like that.
Probably,
but I forgot to look it up.
I think he would have been
mid-50s.
Yeah. I think he would have been mid-50s, but I think in the context of the film, it's 20 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So he's supposed to be more like 40, but I think he was more like mid 50s, like in real life, I guess. But
probably.
anyway, middle aged, right? So we start not only with the shower scene, just to like remind us of what we're what we're dealing with here. A lot of people had problems with them showing that scene again at the beginning of the movie, but I think it sets the stage pretty well, because the next thing you see is Norman in in a courtroom setting, about to be released, because at this point he is assumed that he's been rehabilitated, and he's been in prison for 20 years, and this is to the extreme displeasure of Lila, who is Marion, who was of course Janet Leigh, the famous, murdered in the famous shower scene, which we just saw again at the beginning of this movie. It's her sister. He's kind of under the somewhat supervision of his doctor, which, as we mentioned, was one Mr. Robert Loggia. So he gets kind of placed in a job at a diner, which was arranged by Robert Loggia and Mrs. Spool, who's a waitress there at the diner. And she talks about how, well, isn't it very Christian to give people a second chance, and blah, blah, blah. And he's very thankful and very committed, and he's all about this job as like kind of a prep cook at this diner. We meet Mary, who's a waitress there, and they immediately kind of have a little bit of a connection. Like, she's a dog shit waitress, he's a rehabilitated murderer. So they're like looking out for each other a little bit. Pretty early on, we learn Norman not fully rehabilitated.
No.
His mother, and her kind of ghostly presence, starts to creep back into his life and making him question himself, right, of how rehabilitated he actually is. He sees notes from her and messages from her and things like that, and he's questioning, am I seeing things again? Am I hearing voices again? He knows he's hearing voices again, but is he seeing things, or is somebody fucking with him, right? Or somebody kind of baiting him? He's not really sure. We meet Warren Toomey, like we said, Andy Sipowicz, and he's such a classic scumbag. I love him.
Such a piece of shit.
He's such a piece of shit. He's been running the Bates Motel and basically turned it into like a by hour, like fuck motel.
That's great.
And Norman doesn't like that. And he fires him. He creates an enemy right away in Toomey.
Just watching these scenes with Toomey, though, I couldn't help but think of just like, I just want to remake just Toomey scenes and replace them with Stavros from just
yeah, he could. Oh, it's the same. I mean, the hairline, everything. I mean, he looks like he could be his son. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it just the same shitty thing. Like I don't know if you guys saw Begonia, and Stavros plays Stavros plays like a shitty cop in that, and just the way he's like wheeling and dealing as a cop in that movie would be very funny, just to see him, again, just running a flophouse fuck motel for kids that do drugs at and get off.
Yeah. So Toomey is like his enemy. He eventually, he's thinking maybe Toomey, is the one that gets it, or is the one that's fucking with him. But then Toomey gets killed by somebody wearing the mother's dress and wig outfit, right? So as an audience, we're not really sure who that is, but we have to assume it's not Norman, because Norman doesn't know about it. But anyway, this movie has dramatically, as you might expect, more violent kills than the 1960 movie, but it actually, I think, takes it even a step further. Like, the way that there's a lot of knife play, as you might expect. Toomey getting stabbed in the face. Later we'll talk about, but Lila getting stabbed in the mouth, and they did an awesome dummy effect where they created like a full dummy of her like upper torso and head. We get some scenes later where they have fake hands that are getting stabbed when the kind of defensive wounds from Mary later. Really much more violent than you would expect from a sequel of this classic, I don't want to say art house, but like a bit of a filmmaker's movie, right?
Yeah, I mean, like Hitchcock was considered, a master, and Psycho was the original Psycho. You would say like it's horror, but you would also say it's far more in the realm of a thriller because of all the other like underhanded dealings and such like that. Like what brings Marion Crane to the motel to begin with. This is just straight up a horror movie, and it's a psychological horror movie because you're trying to figure out who the killer is. Like, is it Norman losing his mind, or is he being framed, or is it I don't know. I think probably far down the line like, is it a ghost? But you're like throwing everything up in the air because it's a sequel and you don't really know. It's a sequel you didn't expect to begin with.
For sure. And they did a good job of modernizing it, but keeping it close to the story and paying a lot of homage to the first movie. I agree with you. By today's standards, Psycho doesn't feel as much like a horror movie as a thriller, but like for many, many years, this was considered far and away the scariest, movie ever, scariest mainstream movie ever made, for sure. I mean, you got to remember, this is 8 years before Night of the Living Dead. This is 1960, right? But this is truly a modern. In 1983, they truly made a modern horror movie. They made a modern slasher movie, almost an American giallo in a way. I mean, but we have a lot of those same sentiment. Like, they talk about Psycho, by a lot of people's estimation, being the proto, or at least the precursor to the slasher genre. Mm-hmm. It led to the things that were the first slashers, like Black Christmas, and then later the one that blew it up being Halloween. But we get horny teens getting killed in the cellar. This actually worth calling out, I think. Dean Cundey did the cinematography here, which is, he's most famous probably for working with John Carpenter. They do some great fucking really cool, frankly, like Hitchcock kind of shots, but with modern technology here, where they do one shot where, I don't know how they did it. I don't know enough about cinematography. I don't know if they did it with a crane, but there is a cut associated with it. But where Norman is up in the attic. He's been locked in the attic, and it's while the teens are breaking in downstairs outside the house down on ground level. And they do this shot where he's looking out the window, and then it comes out the window, and then it like cranes down on top of them, breaking into the house. Mm-hmm. It's pretty fucking cool. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, it definitely just would have been a crane rig because, this mansion was like, I think I don't know if they fully relocated it at this point. I assume they did or whatever, but like it was.
Yeah, they the whole front of it, they relocated for the shooting.
Yeah. So like, it would have been a full crane that they just had in that window, then pull it out and then point it down at the kids. Yeah. It's a cool shot.
Yeah. They do one where Norman's looking in the reflection of a doorknob at himself as a kid and hearing his mother's voice and all this, her saying all her normal fucked up stuff. Interestingly enough, the kid in the reflection is Oz Perkins,
mm-hmm. Director of Long Legs,
Anthony Perkins' son. Now celebrated genre director. So Mary like kind of comforts Norman. And we're not really sure what her motivation is and why she's like not that scared of him. But we learn that her mom is Lila. And so he technically killed her aunt, 20 years ago. And they're conspiring against Norman, but she's starting to have like a change of heart. Mary doesn't think that Norman is behind all these things that are happening.
I gotta say, this whole plot by Lila Crane Loomis is just such convoluted bullshit on her part.
A little bit. Yeah.
Years later, there was a Law and Order episode that addressed this, in which a kid got away with killing another kid, because he had convinced the state that he had reformed. And in that episode, Kyle MacLachlan just shoots him in the courthouse and says,
"Oh yeah, I remember that one."
It says, "I was driven mad."
Yeah.
So that's really all Lila had to do, was just shoot Norman in the courthouse and say she was driven mad by his release. And then she would go to the nut hut for a little bit and then get out herself.
Sure. I mean, yeah, theoretically, it is interesting. It is pretty convoluted where she's just like, no, we are going to frame him of doing something, potentially a murder. But it doesn't really seem super clear that was the case. But they wanted to drive him back to, I guess, being actively crazy. Like that was their main goal. I don't believe murder was along for the ride. But then when things start going sideways and people start showing up dead, then they're like, well, this is just going to work to our advantage. You know what I mean? This doesn't change our master plan here.
Right.
Which is, yeah, kind of dumb. But yeah, lots of homage to the original. There's a bunch of stuff you can look up online with all the different set pieces that they brought back. Again, they brought back the original Psycho house. They actually moved it to a new shooting location. The kind of facade in the front. They did not have the facade of the motel anymore, so they did have to build like 40 feet of motel facade, and then they had like some paint, some like matte painting behind that in certain shots, but it never feels like fan service in my opinion, at least. Like they're using original set pieces, all that stuff. There's call outs because it's the same character, but it never feels like just like kind of shameless fan service.
Mm-hmm.
Lila getting stabbed in the mouth by someone dressed as the mother, Norman's mother, is such a out of left field brutal kill.
Yeah.
It's shocking. It's probably the second most shocking part of this movie. And she's so like, you're kind of feeling for Norman mostly because you're seeing things from his perspective and you're seeing his like mental turmoil of like, I don't think I'm doing anything wrong, but like, I don't trust myself and all this stuff. All the while, Norman is trying to be just the nicest normal guy, right? He like I said, he's a skinny, middle-aged guy. He's very soft-spoken. He just seems like a guy who, would be bagging groceries somewhere and just the least intimidating human being. And he is actively trying to be good and nice and prove that he's rehabilitated.
But he's still not.
Well, all these things are acting against him, so he's failing, right?
Right.
But he's trying to prove that he is rehabilitated, right?
Okay. But
yeah, but these people are actively fucking with him, right? They are actively trying to make him question his sanity.
Yeah, but his being fucked with, the real question is, when is he being fucked with first? Because the first time he has a bit of a relapse is when Robert Loggia brings him back to the house. He sees his mother up in the window again, and he hears her voice in the house. So is that... We're never given definitive answer whether or not that's Lila fucking with him or not. Like if it was
the voice, you mean?
Yeah, both. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it matters, because if it's Lila fucking with him, then obviously that's somebody fucking with him. And then if it's not, it's still just internal.
right.
And it's like, it's not intimidating to have trauma. You know what I mean? Like, it's just him dealing with like
point.
his mental illness. And from Robert Loggia's perspective, there's nothing intimidating happening. This is all happening internally.
I also don't believe Robert Loggia as a doctor. So
Robert Loggia. He's Robert Loggia.
I get
he
it.
can do whatever he wants.
But he's also the same guy who has a road rage fit in Lost Highway. So I see him as that. I see him as
Scarface. I see him as the scumbag who gets shot and gets killed in Scarface.
Yeah, I see him as all kinds of different street toughs and scumbags. I do not believe him as a doctor. I think he's probably a quack doctor. He let this dude out early for whatever reason because he wanted to win. Just like, look what I did. I rehabilitated the famous motel killer. Oh my good doctor.
I'm Robert Loggia. No, I get it. There's a lot of speculation here. All right. They at this point, they find Andy Sipowitz's body in the trunk of his car in the pond. So they're after Norman at this point. So I'm fast forward ahead a little bit, but Mary at this point is again kind of on Norman's side, even though she set out initially. So it's like kind of this classic thing you see in like teen dramas of like, yeah, we were making fun of you at first when I asked you to the dance, but now I really have feelings for you kind of thing. But she comes up with this genius idea because he's kind of now like with all this stuff that's happening, like slowly they're just chipping away at him and he's losing his mental stability and he's starting to relapse and hear his mom's voice and all this stuff. And Mary comes up with this bright idea that the only way she can get through to him at this point is to put on the mom costume that his, her mom was wearing to fuck with him. And obviously that doesn't work, right? He responds very poorly to that. He thinks it's his real mom. He tries to like subdue her. She's got a knife. She ends up stabbing him in the hands and in the belly and all this stuff. At this point, still, he has not hurt anyone in this movie, right? Robert Loggia comes in and thinks he's caught Mary because Mary's there with a knife with the mother's the Norman's mom's outfit on. He thinks he's caught Mary in the act of terrorizing Norman and tries to subdue her, but meets like almost Tucker and Dale level death where like first he like attacks her and she accidentally stabs him in the stomach, but then he falls down the stairs, like falls against the banister and makes it go in further and then falls off the like over the, I think he goes over, but then lands on the knife and it goes through him. Yeah, it's a real comedy of errors.
He should have been narrating it all the way down. Just like, oh my God, who would believe if I fell on the banister, the knife would go in like that? I couldn't have predicted.
The knife went in further. I'm Robert Loggia. Yeah. At this point, Norman is just like mentally fucked. He's off the deep end. And he goes after Mary. We talked about this. Mary kind of cuts him up a bunch. They end up in the basement. And this is when Mary stumbles upon her mom's body. And she kind of loses it at this point. She goes to attack Norman, thinking Norman killed her mother. And just then the police show up as Mary's about to kill Norman, and they blast her. Because again, Mary's getting caught in the act. She never should have put that outfit on. Never should have put that wig and dress on. And of course they blame her dead ass for all the stuff that has happened because she got caught, quote unquote, red-handed. And Norman is off scot-free at this point, although he hadn't done anything right in this movie since he had been recuperated, quote unquote, and released. He has not done anything. He has been solely a victim of his own trauma and these circumstances and these people fucking with him, right?
You say he didn't do anything, but he was looking at her ass. He was catching beaver peaks through the wall in the shower. So
he was, yeah, that's true. I didn't call that out. He was peeking, He was doing a little peeping. Norman, nothing if not a fucking creep, right? But he has
you
not
can be a creep. Doesn't mean you're
anybody.
intimidating. You're right.
Yeah. So we got a couple of twists so far. Early on when we learn that Mary is in cahoots with Lila, it's her daughter. When we learn that it isn't Andy Sipowicz, like we're getting all these like people crossed off and stuff. Well, now Norman's off scot-free. He's back at home, and Mrs. Spool, the old waitress from the diner, shows up at Norman's house that night and reveals that she is his real mother, and the woman who raised him and everything was actually her sister. And she had him when she was very young, and all this stuff. And she has been doing all the killings to help him out, to protect him. She arranged all this. We knew she arranged the job for him, and she's been quote unquote protecting him by doing all these killings on his behalf. Big reveal. Holy shit, right? Then, in one of my absolute favorite scenes, and I forgot how great this is, Norman is behind her, and it's just kind of, his reaction is like he's kind of nonplussed by the whole thing. And then he picks up a shovel and just cranks her on the back of the head with a shovel in the most just blunt way it's shot. It's just this most blunt fashion, and it's almost comedic. It's almost like a black comedy.
I mean, they
tagline.
They hit it. Yeah, they hit it with the El Kabong sound effect. So
yeah, it is. It is like this black comedy, punchline of, after all this, Norman hasn't done anything wrong. He's just been kind of a victim of circumstance and all these people, and then he just goes, you know what? That's fucked up of you. Bong. Just drops her, and then she's like, almost doing the like Texas Chainsaw slight convulsing thing on the ground. He carries her body up the stairs. You can hear from his perspective his mother's voice in his head again, and then we get this very excellent silhouette of him outside. So up until the last 90 seconds of the movie, he's the least assuming, regular guy, regular job, just trying to get by, dealing with his past. And then, we get that second big double twist at the end with him learning who his real mother is, promptly killing her. And then now it's like he's back at square one, where he was before he was arrested the first time. So you get this really cool, silhouette of him with the house in the backdrop. So, basically they made a sequel of arguably, the precursor to all these, slashers. But they made it as a modern psychological slasher with weird black humor elements, and actually made it good, which is like, on paper, this shouldn't fucking work, right? Mm-hmm. If you were to describe this movie to somebody, it should not work at all. But, testament to the script, good performances, just professional through and through, sound effects, shot really well. Yeah. So it's a pretty fucking sick movie.
Go ahead. Go finish up.
No, I was going to say, it's pretty. I was just going to get into defending why he's unintimidating one more time, but I assume you have questions and comments.
Yes. I have two. I have two comments, Brian.
I want to hear.
Yes.
Okay, so one, Tom Holland just did a reverse of Friday the 13th. As we recall, Friday the 13th, the original, the mother is the killer, and then the sequel is Jason. And in this one, we start with Norman Bates as the killer, and then it turns out the mother is the killer in the second one. So Tom Holland just did a reverse. Two times.
I agreed, right? But here's the interesting thing is, Robert Bloch's sequel was like a takedown of modern slashers. Mm-hmm. So Tom Holland, I think, as a bit of an homage, even though he was going completely off book when he wrote this script, completely in a different direction than the sequel novel. He still had a lot of between the quote unquote creative kills and all the red herrings and all that stuff. Like he was trying to make a take a classic property and make a kind of an homage to modern slashers through the lens of the ultimate grandfather of the slashers. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So my point is, I think that was intentional. I think that there was some meta going on there, at least in Tom Holland's head.
For sure. My other thing I want to bring up is that Brian is gaslighting the audience again because he's leaving a lot out of that last final confrontation with the real mother. Norman Bates, when he answers the door, he says, "I knew somebody was coming. I didn't know who was coming, though." So he had prepared for somebody, and he doesn't just give her the El Kabong on the back of the head. He also poisons her tea because he was prepared for that.
Right. Yeah.
Well, they don't specifically say that they poisoned the tea.
She starts coughing like she's poisoned. Yeah.
I don't think she was actually. I don't know if she was actually poisoned. I know that the original script that Tom Holland wrote was that he was going to poison her tea. And if you remember, that's how he killed his mother in the first movie, with poison tea. So they thought that that might be a little bit predictable. And this was Franklin, the director. And he also was like, we need something bigger. We need something more dynamic to happen here. And and something's a little bit, out of left field. And so that's where the ultra violent smashing an old lady in the head with a shovel came from.
Sure. I'm just saying he did for sure poison her because she was reacting as if she was poisoned. And why did he have a shovel already in the house? I'm saying this is all premeditated. This wasn't just you revealed yourself to be my mother, I'm going to bonk you. It was, I'm going to wait with all my fun weapons on hand.
Yeah.
And then kill whoever was actually doing the murders when they reveal themselves to me.
So I guess my answer would be, so what? Somebody's trying to frame him for murder. He's not gonna defend himself against a framer. If a framer is going to reveal themselves to him,
I'm gonna kill him.
Yeah, maybe he's going to give him a bonk. Also, even if these are his intentions, I think a lot of the things that make him, quote unquote, intimidating would be things that are all happening in his internal life. So intimidation, in my mind, is a very external facing phenomenon, right? Or activity, right? It's as a result of if I think of classic intimidating moves, it's, scowling at somebody, an animal roaring, making noise, like trying to do something to puff themselves up or to show themselves as scary, intentionally or not intentionally. All of the things that are, could be construed as intimidating are not visible to the outside world.
Except the fact that he carries a record of murder with him.
Yeah, but that was the first movie, so that's why I specifically made this movie.
You can't separate it when this movie starts with the murder of the first movie, and the whole premise is that he's getting out of court for murder.
So I want your rabbits to be held responsible for every murder every rabbit has ever done in history. Then rabbits are intimidating because they have killed people in the past.
Be wary.
Running in front of their cars, making them swerve and hit a tree.
The chances aren't zero. I mean, between Night of the Lepus and Monty, stay on your toes, people.
Yeah.
But they're also not intentional murderers.
No, he did murder people in the first movie, and I think they are specifically portraying him as as unintimidating on purpose. And I think they do a pretty good job of it. Like you the whole time when you see these terrible things happening, you're going, is this guy really the fucking guy that's responsible for it? Because the most genius thing they did in this movie, because if they didn't make the script and everything from Norman's perspective, you would just be like, oh, this is just going to be the fucking same movie as the first one, where he looks all meek and mild and then, I'm crazy. But the fact that we were in Norman's head the whole time and he was questioning whether he was crazy, and like we could tell that his intentions were to not be crazy and not be a murderer. Right?
Sure, but there was a whole bunch of people who didn't want to be around him either. All the people at the diner, aside from Spool, who was his mom, and obviously the cook who's bigger than him, but everybody else didn't want him around. So
Toomey wasn't intimidated. Toomey wanted to throw down in the diner with him.
I think Toomey was a lot of talk. He was ready to back down when he had to.
Yeah. I don't know. I think all 106'2", 148 pounds of Anthony Perkins in his meek and mild state. I don't know. I think he's pretty unintimidating.
In a contest against Michael Myers, sure, I'll give it to you. But in a contest against bunnies,
in a contest against Andy Sipowicz, I like Andy Sipowicz's chances.
But
with the element of surprise.
But this is a contest against bunnies and a dork without a record. That's the one thing that separates Willard and Norman is Willard doesn't have previous record
that we know of.
Mm-hmm. No, bunnies are just bunnies, bro.
No, the bunnies are
the bunnies are giant mutant killer bunnies.
They're fucking.
Look at them; they're adorable. Yeah, look, they're adorable.
They're huge.
They're
not
so
adorable.
big. They're big and they're covered in blood.
They're big, fluffy guys. They're just big guys.
All right. They're just big old guys. All right. That is all I have to say about Psycho 2 from 1983. This brings us to, I guess if anybody has any final comments, or final arguments or topics they want to bring up, this is their last chance. So, opportunity to say so or forever hold your peace.
I think all I want to say is that for the majority of my movie, my guy, and I think a lot of the debate is going to be what we consider a killer and what we don't. But I still feel like Willard did kill someone, and he did. So therefore, think about everything he was during this movie, which really was just a sad little lonely man who made a bunch of friends, great friends with rats, and really just thought was just playing with them and hanging out and maybe ruining his boss's little dinner party. And then, oops, this guy fell out of the window. Oh, sorry.
At the command of tear him apart. It was a kill command.
Well, tear him apart does sound like a kill command, but
it does.
I will say his intentions could have been just to, maim him.
Yeah.
And also
bite his toes off.
Also,
you know what can't just bite toes off? Giant fucking rabbits.
No, they're going to take more than a toe. But also, I think Willard at best manslaughtered somebody. So,
and killed
my whole
hundreds
argument
of
is
rats.
Willard's not a.
And killed hundreds of rats.
He is a murderer to rats, but I don't think that is a capital offense.
And who knows how far he would have gone had those avenging rats not stopped his reign of terror.
True. That's speculative.
That's
and
good. That's speculative, but true.
All right. Are we ready to vote?
Yeah.
Steve, how do you want to vote? How do you want to do it? You get to make that decision as well.
I think we're going to go backwards in the order that we presented. So we'll have Brian vote first, then Ben, and then myself.
All right. Well, I'm going to stick with mine, but for second place, I am going to say it's a bit of a toss up here, because on one hand, I do believe that Willard is less intimidating than giant killer rabbits, but I'm having a hard time coming to a firm conclusion that Willard is actually a killer.
Yeah.
I think Willard's just a dumbass. Like, Anthony Perkins, Norman Bates is a killer.
Yes.
Like, he murdered some people, right? Now, in the second movie, he's rehabilitated, quote unquote, and he's trying to not be a killer, but he's a killer. He killed people, and he kills exactly one person in this movie. Them rabbits kill a lot of people.
Sure.
Whether they're in the man suit or whether they're just munching on tourists. I don't think Willard is actually a killer. You could argue he killed Martin, but it also they seem to have made it very clear that they wanted it to seem like it was an accident. Because, yes, he sicks the rats on them, but the rats don't kill him. A fall kills him, right? So, like, I feel like the script wanted us to see Willard as having plausible deniability. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And us feeling right up until when he starts drowning rats. Up until then, we are supposed to be on Willard's side, right? Willard is the protagonist. Willard's the good guy right up until he decides to kill the rats. And even then, we have to make a moral decision in our heads of whether or not we give a fuck enough about rats. So I don't think I can vote for Willard because I don't think he's a killer.
Complete reverse. It's not that he's not intimidating. He's just not a killer, so he doesn't
He's extremely.
Yeah,
so the goal is
because intimidating killer.
I could pick a lot of people who are not intimidating.
You're right, right.
But also aren't killers. So there's two bits of criteria that need to be satisfied. You have to be unintimidating, which Willard certainly is. But you also have to be a killer. And I do not believe Willard satisfies that one. So and frankly, in my movie, I think that argument would have held water right up until the last scene. Even though Norman is a killer in the first movie, he's not a killer in this movie. And I would be hard pressed to argue against somebody using this argument against me right up until the last 90 seconds of the movie when he smashes an old lady in the head with a shovel. So I'm going to go with the Lepus for Night of the Lepus for that reason.
All right, Ben.
All right, that's me. I will still stick with mine just based on definitions, but I certainly respect and understand everything that Brian just said. For my second place, for what I think is the second least intimidating killer, I'm going to go with Psycho 2. I think, yeah.
If it was giant mutant Norman Bates, then I could see, right? Well, you might pick the rabbits.
I loved how that guy was so meek and so subtle the entire time. And but also I just fucking giant ass grizzly bear sized rabbits scare the shit out of me. I'm sorry. That's terrifying.
Shocked by that. I'm shocked by that.
That's it.
You are shooketh.
I'm shooketh because I think of the three of us, Ben is the most outdoorsy of the three of us, and Ben goes hunting the most. Yeah, and I figured he would have been the most willing to take on a challenge of taming said giant guys. They're just big fluffy guys.
No, I don't want to tame it. I understand like what they how that would feel, and it would feel fucking terrible, and that scares me.
I'm just, again, I'm surprised it scares you. And like the scene at the end where they are chasing the rabbits with the helicopter, like I felt like Ben would have really attached himself to that and like saw like, one of those Joe Rogan elk hunt type opportunities for himself.
No. I'm not that kind of outdoorsman.
I was gonna say I don't see Ben as a Sarah Palin type.
No.
Shooting. Yeah,
I use a bow. I only have my bow. My bow is hanging right over there. There it is. All right. I don't have a helicopter.
All right. Hey, okay. If you're not willing to hunt from a helicopter and you only use a bow, fine. I can understand. All right. My bad. I misjudged.
Yeah. So I'm going with Psycho 2.
Okay. Well then, for my final vote, obviously I'm sticking with Night of the Lepus because they're just big guys. They are not humans motivated by the darkness within their hearts as Willard and Norman are. Rabbits, I would understand, sure, great big ones, they're terrifying in a way until like the lights come on and then they all just go back in their burrows, or you just go, oh yeah, if I feed it enough, it won't bite me. So it's not a big deal. They're stupid animals. They're not unpredictable. However, between Willard and Norman, I already said it, Norman comes with baggage. He is a killer to begin with in this film. He comes out, rehabilitated, supposedly. This is questionable at best. This would have been a character that was set free by Ronald Reagan's policy of emptying the asylums anyway, rehabilitated or not. I still think he's a danger to society, and merely just walking in with that baggage of being a multiple time murderer is going to put a lot of people on their back foot. Meanwhile, Willard is a fucking knucklehead. He is a non-terrifying entity. Up until, the last third of his movie, you think you could probably just get away with any kind of wedgie or, arm burn or anything that you wanted to. You could shove him down. You could stick him in lockers. You could lock him in his little, you could lock him in the stationery closet at the office. You're not afraid of him. However, I do want to go back to the idea that if you put a snake in somebody's mailbox and it bites somebody, that is considered murder. And the way that he trains these rats to kill is premeditation. And so while the rats themselves may not be as dangerous as a rattlesnake, it's still a premeditation to do harm. And I do believe that makes him a killer. I believe he would be found guilty of training animals to kill for him.
I absolutely disagree. He will not be found guilty of murder.
Okay, to kind of bridge the snakes are obviously dangerous. But instead of rats, think of crows. If it was crows trained to peck people's eyes out and kill them that way, that's still murder. You can train any animal. If you train dogs to attack, that's murder. And you go to jail for that.
I get it. The rats didn't if the rats ripped his throat out and bled to death, I'd agree with you. But he fell out a window.
I think he
13 dead-end drive style.
Yeah, I think he would have died anyway.
The rats didn't pick him up and throw him out the window.
Dude, he would not have fallen out the window if the rats weren't there in the first place.
Well, a banana peel could do the same thing. My point is,
but there's no banana peel.
If I wanted to, so if I threw up, well, no, that's unintentional. But my point is, the rats, if they would have gnawed his throat out, I would have said okay. But the rats barely did any damage to him up until the point where he overreacted and launched himself out the window like a dumbass.
Overreaction or not, the command was tear him apart.
Good point.
So the command was not harass. The command was not nibble. The command wasn't frighten. The command was tear him apart, which is a kill command. And so just because he threw his own dumbass out a window doesn't mean that had he stayed in that office, he would not have been eaten and devoured. And so with that, Willard is a killer.
Is being a killer in the genre film sense the same as being convicted of murder?
Yes, because we see it happen. We see the entire case happen. So we are the jury being witness to the act. If instead of rats, Willard just set that office on fire, is he convicted of murder? If Martin jumps out that window to avoid the fire rather than burning to death,
Yeah, right. Good point.
but still dies.
Oh, fuck.
The thing is, Willard has imperiled somebody.
He has imperiled. I agree with that. But is the weight stronger? You would have to say yes, that least intimidating versus how much of a killer they are. Again, satisfying the two,
Sure.
precursors for this. I would agree with you that Willard is less intimidating than Norman Bates, but he is also much less of a killer.
I don't know. I don't see it that way. I see it as premeditation and imperilment. So,
but he didn't smash an old woman on the back of the head with a shovel.
Yeah, no. I mean, just because Norman was very uncouth with the way he killed that lady and uninventive, like, yeah.
Well, he also stabbed somebody in a shower. He's a straight up killer.
Right.
Killed multiple people.
Yeah. Which is why he's more intimidating, because he has the aura of a killer. Yeah, he has the aura of a killer.
Least possible. So to satisfy this is you have to be the least possible of a killer.
You gotta kill stuff, but also no one has to be scared of you.
Yes, like I would say here I'll pause this and then I'll rest my case. Who in this movie, in Psycho 2, was anywhere near as intimidated by Norman Bates as Martin was of Willard when he showed up with the rats? He was terrified. He was shaking. He was panicking. He was terrified. Menacing Martin. He was menacing him using the tools by which you argue he killed him. He could have been holding a gun to his head, but instead he was holding 100 rats to his head.
Well, I would say Meg Tilly was that level of intimidated when she thought Norman was losing it, because he was on the phone doing the shtick with his mother. That scared her so much she ran down dressed up like his own mother and then caused her to knife Norman multiple times. Then, upon seeing her own...
He was menacing her at that point. Sure, he was menacing her at that point, yeah.
And then upon seeing her own mother's head in his basement... So yeah, I mean, she made a wrong conclusion,
but he didn't put her there
exactly. Which that doesn't work in your favor, because she thought it was him because he's so scary.
so she's stupid, so he's intimidating.
Yes.
Being intimidated, I would argue, being intimidated by someone is not the same thing as being intimidating. That's like if I said
that doesn't make sense. That's some like, real Bill Clinton what is bullshit.
No. Listen, hear me out. So if you saw somebody and they're walking down the street and they're just a normal looking person minding their own business, you might not be intimidated by that person because they're not intimidating. However, let's say hypothetically you were a super big racist and that person happened to be African American, and you're immediately going to be intimidated because of your false pretenses you're putting on that person because you're a racist. That doesn't make that person intimidating. That makes you intimidated by them wrongly. So very similarly, she was intimidated by Norman because she thought he did something he didn't do. That doesn't make him intimidating. That just means she's intimidated, but through false means.
Okay, sure. Then we could relitigate this all the way back to my rabbits that you guys are.
Wait, your rabbits are out of the picture. Your rabbits are done. Your rabbits are moot point.
I'm just saying we could relitigate it to that you guys are wrong. That the rabbits are, not the least intimidating because they're just animals. And you guys are just scared of big bunnies. That's your fault.
But they are in fact dangerous. They prove themselves to be dangerous by eating all those people.
A lot of things are dangerous. You're just not respecting them correctly.
A lot of things are dangerous.
Yeah, a lot of animals are dangerous. Dogs will eat you if you don't feed them right. Cats will eat you.
We can go that argument. Yeah. I like the argument. I can see us spiraling towards the argument of, why are you intimidated by danger?
Yeah.
What are you, some sort of coward?
In any case.
Yeah. The problem lies in just like the whole title of this showdown, and it's going to be complicated. It's weird.
Yeah.
It is.
It's subjective.
It is.
Yeah. Subjective.
All right.
It's subjective,
fair enough.
And that's why, in the end, it's actually taken out of our hands because I am going to vote for Willard second, mainly because he doesn't carry the killer tag with him already, but also... because I could, I'm more worried about not being able to fight the rats rather than fight Willard. Mm. Like the rats are scarier, but we're not talking about the rats. Ben the rat is devious, and multiple rats under the control of a very devious rat is scary. But we're talking about a tow-headed kid that gets beaten by the rats. So yeah. Mm. So yeah, I'm giving it to Willard, and then that means it's going to a vote for the audience.
Yep. All right. Well, check out this week on the social medias. You'll be able to. We'll put up a little poll, and you can choose who you think should take home the Summation Championship strap for the month. But if you want to suggest topics for showdowns, if you want to weigh in on the showdown in any way, maybe you've got suggestions for punishment films, or maybe you've got topics to add to that spinny ass wheel, go over and check us out on the social medias at Halloween is Forever, on all the various things, on the Instagram and then the Facebook and the Blue Sky and whatever, all that stuff. Also, if you want to send us an old-fashioned email, you could certainly do that too, at halloweenisforeverpod@gmail.com. Also, don't forget, we'd love it if you went over and gave us your little tasty, sticky, stinky monies over on the Patreon. It's patreon.com/halloweenisforever. You give us 5 little tiny, little stinky dollary dues every month, and all you get is a whole bunch of stuff. Not only do you get write-ups from Steve and recos and reviews and all that fun stuff that's posted on the Patreon. You also get extra votes in the topics for our showdowns when we put those up there to figure out what the showdown topics are going to be. You also get access to come join us here live on the Discord and hang out with us and harass us in the chat and that sort of thing. See Ben's Pittsburgh potty and his various weaponry and things like that, and watch him piss if you want to in the basement.
And
you get to join us.
I should have shit.
You should have shit. We wouldn't have known. You could have shit. You get all that stuff, and not the least of which you get an extra episode every month in the form of our Patreon exclusive podcast series. Currently, we are doing something called God Is Not Forever, a cinematic roadmap to killing God's dumb ass. And that is where we are trying to fulfill finally my year-over-year New Year's resolution to kill God. We are cinenauts going on a cinematic voyage to learn how to potentially commit deicide. You also get all the backlog of Patreon exclusive podcast series we've done. We've done like 4 of these sons of bitches, and you probably got an extra god dang 100+ hours of content on there if you can't get enough of listening to us say stupid shit into microphones. I think that's it.
Yep.
Sound good.
For the Patreon?
Yep, that's it.
All right. So don't forget, go to the social medias this week. Help us vote, and that will determine, because it's a tie, that'll help us break that tie and determine who's going to take home that Sunbitchin' Championship strap for the month, and who next week is going to be able to bestow a punishment episode on punishment movie on the remaining insolent bastards. All right. Any final thoughts, boys, before we wrap up this here showdown?
Nope. That's about it. It's been a good 5 years.
It has. It's been fun. And you know, we'll see if we make it another 5 years. I might be dead before another 5 years.
Oh, I hope you guys do.
I also
I love listening to all this, and it's been a pleasure being here tonight. And I want to listen to another 5 years more. So please keep doing it.
Well, we appreciate you. We appreciate you, and thanks for coming on and sitting here with us for several hours
pleasure.
on a weekend evening and recording with us. It was a lot of fun. And I want to also really quick just get a trademark out there. So there is a digital record that a mashup between Manslaughter and Rats is Rat Slaughter. And I would like that to be a band name that is time stamped, that I have trademarked right at this point on the internet.
Slaughter.
So, Rat Slaughter.
Fuck yeah.
All right. For the Halloween's Forever crew, I'm Brian.
I'm Steve.
I'm Ben.
All right. See you later, you little rat fucks.
Bye, everybody. Rat Slaughter.